when members may ask Mr. Bolton questions for 5 minutes. I'll turn now to the ranking member, Mr. Davis, for his questions.
Sorry, Madam Chair. Mr. Bolton, again, I want to turn to the Capitol Police's threat assessment and intelligence gathering and analysis capabilities. Prior to January 6th, were you aware of the Capitol Police's deficiencies in counter surveillance and threat assessment operations?
In regards to the threat assessment section, we did, and we had issued a report earlier recommending that they increase their amount of analysts and bringing some of their policy and procedures up to date. We had not looked at counter surveillance since that was not a standalone entity that would not have fallen or come under our radar.
Okay. Can you speak to the department's current intelligence gathering and analysis capabilities? Are those executed at a sufficient level that you would have recommended in your previous reports yet?
When we conducted our previous report, they, as I stated, their caseload was very high, but since that report, their caseload has basically exploded to even larger numbers. So again, we're recommending that they increase their level of analysts and agents to work those cases because of the number of threat cases that have been generated and additional resources. Now, we also made a recommendation to utilize the FBI's behavioral analyst unit more frequently than what they did when we spoke to them. They indicated that they could take on much more cases than what we were previously providing them.
Great. Thank you for your responses there, Mr. Bolton. 10 years ago in Tucson, our former colleague Gabby Giffords and 18 others were shot by a gunman at an official event. Tragically, Representative Giffords was severely wounded and 6 people were killed. Since then, there's been an exponential increase in the number of threats made against members of Congress. However, there has been no corresponding increase in the number of arrests or indictments. Can you explain why? Is this a resources issue for the department?
It may not be so much a resource issue for the department. It may be more of a resource issue for Department of Justice. Now, we haven't looked at the reasonings for either the declination rate or the reasons for why the U.S. attorneys aren't taking the cases. So we haven't done any work in that field, so I wouldn't be able to give you a definitive answer, but there could be many factors as to why those cases, the subsequent rise in the threat cases isn't coinciding with the conviction rate.
Well, speaking of some of those issues you just mentioned, I know that the department relies on federal and state partners to protect members outside of D.C. How, in your recommendation, have you made any recommendations about how the department can better coordinate with partner agencies to provide better security?
In a previous report, we did make a recommendation to regionalize the department. In other words, having regional agents assigned to sections of the country. That way they could form more partnerships with our local and state partners and with the United States Attorney's Office within that district. So we have made the previous recommendation. I believe the department has acted on that. They are opening up 2 regional offices, one in San Francisco and I believe one in Miami. So they are taking our recommendation that they will be regionalizing and trying to get their folks out into the field, and that way form better partnerships and relationships, which could help us in getting our prosecution numbers up.
Well, I really appreciate that, but coming from the Midwest, that doesn't necessarily look like a regional approach to me, being in San Francisco and Miami. Because as you know, my colleagues and I were attacked on a baseball field only a few years ago. Even more recently, a man was charged and prosecuted and convicted for threatening to kill me. So I know firsthand that these threats are real and that the people making these threats intend to act on them. I do believe that a more aggressive enforcement stance, more arrests, and more prosecutions of those who make violent threats and intend to carry them out would be a very strong deterrent. What can the department do to encourage federal, state, and local law enforcement and prosecutors to take a more aggressive stance? Do you need to widen this regional net? Because clearly, I don't know anybody who's going to be satisfied with a regional approach of offices going to San Francisco and Miami.
Oh, let me clarify one thing, and I failed to mention. is that this is the first of, I think the department was thinking at least 5 field offices initially. So this is the first of those. So there will be additional field offices. There's discussion of Chicago, I believe in Texas some. So there are additional field offices. These are just the first 2 that they're putting out. So I know the department was in discussion in having additional field offices out there, so they would be able to cover the Midwest and those areas. A lot of times in my experience when I was with the service is when you actually get out and meet the United States Attorney's Office, the AUSA, and you form a friendship and a bond, and you have a much better chance of getting your case. It's just it's that interaction. So by the department getting out more and meeting and greeting the United States Attorney's Office and their folks, I think we'll have better success in getting our cases prosecuted, along with strengthening our current ties with the FBI and other federal and local law enforcement agencies.
I couldn't agree more, Mr. Bolton. My time is up, and I certainly hope that the leaders of the Capitol Police and the leaders in Congress realize the regional approach means a regional approach, and look forward to working with you on that, sir. Yield back.
Gentleman yields back. The gentleman from